Okay, so we're here today to talk about sitting comfortably. This is something that you'll hear your yoga teacher talk about in every class, and perhaps it's something that you've actually not managed to do, and perhaps been unable to use props or unsure of how to use them. So I'm going to show you a few different ways today of how to find a comfortable seat that works for your body. It's not going to be comfortable for everybody to sit with their sit bones on the floor and their legs crossed. So we've got a few props around me today, so I'm going to show you how to use a few of these that could help. So to begin with, let's just come to sit on the floor. If it's okay for your body, just come to sit with crossed legs and see how it feels for you. It may feel comfortable, and maybe this is your comfortable seat, and that's fine. But if this is causing any strain on the groin, on the hips, the lower back, or it just doesn't feel like you could sit here for 5 or 10 minutes quite comfortably in a meditation practice, then this isn't going to be your comfortable seat. So let's play around with some leg positions before we move into using props as well. So typically we will cross our legs and it will be 1 foot under a leg and 1 heel under the other leg. But you can actually widen this cross-legged stance so that we bring the heel of 1 leg in towards the groin, quite close, and then place the heel of the other leg in front of that heel so that the legs actually become significantly wider and the heels are in line with each other and in line with the pelvis. This could be a much more comfortable way to sit for longer periods of time with cross legs, opening up the hips and just being a little bit softer on the legs. If this still doesn't work for you, try sitting on your knees. So rolling over to sit on the knees. I'll sit this way so that you can see this from the side profile. And just bringing the toes to touch or just ever so slightly apart behind the bottom and sitting the sit bones down onto the heels. Hands would rest gently on top of the thighs or the knees. This could be an easier way to find a comfortable position for longer. Also, it's much easier to find a tall spine and a relaxed lower back in this position. Now, if neither of those work for you, or you're really keen to be in a cross-legged position, then props are a really great friend for us all. So I absolutely use these, and many yoga teachers do. So you don't have to be a beginner to use props. Props are your friend no matter what stage you are in your practice. Now, these 2 blocks are slightly different shape. This is known more as a yoga brick because it's in the shape of a brick, and this is a yoga block. They're both made of similar materials. These 2 are ever so slightly spongy. Some are a little bit more dense if you get them made of cork, for example, but it doesn't really matter what you're using. You don't even need to use a yoga brick or block at home necessarily. Something like a book could work, or blankets that are stacked on top of each other or rolled up as well. So see what you've got at home that might work if you're not too interested in investing in yoga props just yet. So we're going to try a couple of these. This is the lower option with the yoga block, and just laying it on its long side and sitting so just the hip bones and just the fleshy part of the bottom is sitting on the block, just to lift the hips ever so slightly higher. I'm going to turn to the side so that you can see this a little bit better as well, because it's not necessarily the entire sit bones. So rather than necessarily bringing the entire bottom onto the block, try and shuffle forwards a little and just allow the sit bones to almost be on the edge or just off the edge of this block, and for this fleshy part at the top of the gluteus maximus, the glute muscle here, to rest gently on that block. Bring the hips ever so slightly higher. You might find a little bit of rocking into the block, and that's absolutely fine as well, so long as it's comfortable on the flesh. Again, playing around with this positioning of the feet, not necessarily crouching the knees right in, can really find a nice open and wide space here. This can be so much more comfortable, so much easier to keep a tall spine with only an inch or two extra space for the hips to move. You can also use the brick to work similarly. This can offer a little bit more space because it's ever so slightly taller, so exactly the same principle, just allowing the fleshy part of the bottom to sit on top of the brick there. We can always also use the brick in a kneeling position. So coming to roll over onto the knees, this might work better if you're feeling a lot of compression into the legs or the heels or behind the knees. So in this position, it can be comfortable for a while, but if you've got any knee problems, if this is stretching or pulling too much into the kneecaps, or you're getting too much compression behind the legs, then you can take a block or a brick. I'm going to use a brick in this instance. Just pop it on top of the heels and then rest the bottom down again. This can really take off that added pressure behind the legs and just release a little bit of that stretch if it's too much on the knees. Again, bringing the spine nice and tall and allowing you to sit comfortably for a little bit longer. If none of that is floating your boat, then things like really comfy blankets and bolsters can work nicely as well. So I have a bolster here. This is a buckwheat bolster, so it's really quite firm and quite heavy. They come in many different materials, but I like this because it's really sturdy and it keeps its shape. So for a kneeling position, it can be really nice to sit on top of a bolster and almost like you're sitting on top of a horse, sort of straddling this lovely, squishy bolster and allowing the weight to really root down into the sit bones here. Again, if you've got problems with the knees, this might not be a great position for you because it may stretch a little into the lower thighs there, but give this one a go because this is a really easy sitting position, and this is a great one for meditating for a little longer as well. Also, it can be used underneath the bottom, just as we did with the blocks for cross-leg position. Just bringing the hips just a little higher. So maybe you're in cross legs like this. Maybe you're playing with the weight distribution and moving forwards with it as well. Again, keeping that spine nice and tall. If none of that works for you, if on the knees it's just not for your body and it's feeling really uncomfortable, then feel free to find your comfortable sitting position with perhaps feet on the floor and ever so slightly bent knees, or maybe the legs are almost or completely straight. Wherever you are, make sure that you're comfortable and completely relaxed. This is the main thing. You don't want to be holding tension or stress anywhere in the body where it's not needed, especially when we're meditating, we're being mindful. The last thing we need is something in our body screaming at us saying, please change position, this isn't comfortable. So even in a position like this where it's ever so slightly more active, if it's more comfortable for you, don't feel like you can't go here. Not all yogis have to sit with a perfect lotus pose all of the time. If you do have that and it works for your body, that's amazing. But if you don't, find something that does work for you. So when your yoga teacher next asks, find your comfortable seat, maybe one of these will work for you. Let's find our comfortable seat to close this practice together. Coming to sit comfortably with the hands or wrists resting gently upon the thighs or knees. Closing down the eyes, bring the hands to heart center. Bow the head down towards the heart. The light in me sees the light in you. Namaste.